So this is the journey log, and this is about documenting your cozy business quest. This came up in conversation earlier this year around how to document your journey in a way that feels good and isn't taking away from the creative process. Now, this is a conversation we have been having so much in the Cozy Business Group Mentoring Program, the VIP tier. And so it feels really important to actually talk about it in this space as well when it comes to documenting, when it comes to creating content around our business and, not taking away from what we're doing here. So let's dive in. The point of documenting is that it's supposed to make your life as a solopreneur easier, not harder. This is not film yourself while you work, narrate your process, and make sure you look productive the whole time. This is not like being a streamer on Twitch or something like that, where you are literally having to entertain the audience while you're also doing something else. Documenting your journey is not about filming the work while it's happening. It's about capturing evidence around the work in a way that supports your flow instead of interrupting it. And that feels really, really important to share. So this is what I call the documentation distance map. And I'm going to go through each of the layers as we go through this little mini training, because I think it's really important for you to be able to decide where are you at in your journey. It will change maybe even on a daily basis, or even depending on what it is that you're actually in the middle of doing as to how much you want to actually document. So we have the creative core, which is this middle area here. And that is like the heart of your most creative inner workings of the work that you do. So for example, the conversation that we had in the group was so much about like being a physical artist, being somebody who actually creates art for their business. And when you're in that creative process, the last thing you want to do is feel like you're being watched by someone. For my coaches, my energy healers, we are in that space when we are maybe on our own, going through our own healing process, or going through our modality or something, or when we're holding space for our most intimate one-on-one clients and group kind of coaching programs, mastermind, things like that. We are not necessarily going to be sharing that publicly. And if you think about it as like your comfort zone, where is it that you feel comfortable sharing, depending on the topic, the day that it is, how you're feeling, how your energy is, the season that you're in your life, in your business, in your month, and really feeling into that. So I wanted to break that down in this training. As I said, this is the third time that I've done it. So hopefully this time it actually works, and I will be able to get across what it is that I mean when I talk about documenting. So the creative core is that really just like heart of your work. The process edge is actually where you are kind of sharing around the outsides of it. So maybe something that's happening, like this is what I'm going to be doing, this is what I have done. And then the meaning layer, so reflecting afterwards and talking about that. So I'm going to go into more detail about what each of these mean. And you'll notice that I spend a lot of my content in this area more so than any of the others. And I'm going to give you some examples and things as we go. The closer you are to the creative core, the more disruptive documentation becomes, and the further out you go, the safer and easier it is. So let me just come back to here. So exactly what I just was talking about, this creative core being that real heart of your work. And then as you move outwards, you sort of start to feel it's a little bit more casual. It's not quite so vulnerable when you're sharing more of these outer layers of when you're documenting. So the center circle is the creative core. And some examples of what this looks like is like in the process of painting, writing, designing, thinking, pausing, wondering, abandoning ideas, starting 3 things at once, whatever your messy creative process is. Another example of this that we see a lot in the online space and definitely have in social media over the years is like something that I personally could just absolutely never do. There is not one part of me that when I am feeling very emotional, feeling very, very vulnerable, having kind of a moment in my own personal life and journey, that I would think about setting up a camera and filming myself having a breakdown and crying. And that is no judgment to anyone who is comfortable doing that. The whole point of this is what feels okay for you, not what other people are doing, what is socially acceptable, what is something we have come to know and see people doing. So really thinking about, again, what feels good for you, what feels safe for you, but that creative core, that really being in it right now. And this is the part of the process that you don't owe anyone visibility here. You don't have to, you don't ever owe anyone visibility, to be honest, but this is for you to decide what you want to share. Sorry, this is the middle circle, the process edge. This is something like taking a moment, and you'll have heard me use this example before, to kind of do a little mini time lapse before or after, like before you get started or as you're coming to the end. You've seen me like pick up your phone, do something quickly, and then put it back down. A still photo of your workspace or something a project that you're working on. Sometimes what I'll do is, if I've just created something that I'm excited about, I'll just literally kind of film myself scrolling through it and just put it on my Instagram stories to just give people a little behind the scenes sneak peek of something that I've been working on, something I'm excited about, something that's kind of in the process of coming together, but it's not in the middle of that like really, really intimate kind of personal figuring it out and trying to work out what it's going to look like. It's something that I just capture afterwards to be able to share. Things like hands-only B-roll, or like a before and after. So a physical or visual representation of something before you started it and what it looked like at the end. One thing that actually, I'll do it for this example because I've got kind of this idea for a way that we can actually create a bit of a content library for ourselves. And I started working on it, but I just ran out of time. So I will put it in the group, but I'll show you the start of it and then what it looks like when I've finished designing it. And you'll be able to see like, oh, that's how I can put together a little resource like that for my group or for my members or my clients, or as a opt-in or something like that, and show you that kind of before or after as well. This is optional, intentional, minimal. It's like, what is the thing that I can just do to capture a little piece of this to be able to share that something is happening behind the scenes. And it doesn't require any narration, looking busy, explaining, like performing productivity to anyone. It really is snapping something to build excitement, to build a bit of energy around it, to show people that something is in the works, something is coming. And often those little before it's ready pieces can help people to get excited and want to learn more as well. This isn't for proof. This is for context. So again, why am I sharing this? Why would people be interested? Because they might want to see how something is at the start and what it looks like after, what I'm working on right now behind the scenes. Our people don't want us to be perfect. They don't want us to have everything together. They want us to be real and be sharing and showing that we are real people too. We're figuring it out. We're going through the process as well. And then the outer circle is the meaning layer. So like I said, you'll notice that I do this all the time. A lot of my content is this reflective meaning layer. Here's a pattern I noticed with my clients this week. Here's a decision I changed my mind about. Here's something I realized after I'd already done this thing. Here's what surprised me. Here's something that I'm noticing that's coming up in conversation a lot lately. This is a theme that we've been talking about on and off in multiple communities that I'm a part of. This is where your storytelling lives. This is where teaching emerges naturally, because you're not just documenting your side of it and what you're experiencing or witnessing in real time. You're also giving a bit of an explanation on how you're navigating something. So what that does is it both shows your audience that you are someone who is also in the trenches doing the thing that they're trying to do, and you're someone who has solutions. You have tools, you have expertise, you have next steps that can help them too. One of the Emerge and Expand members, the VIP members, is actually documenting like every day. And a perfect example of this that she's been doing, she sort of said, you know, I missed it, and she's been documenting just like walking every single day. And she did just like a really short walk one day because it was busy, and she just kind of walked, 10 minutes instead of a longer time that she's been filming. And we had this conversation about like showing people that imperfect is better than missing it altogether. and actually sharing, these are the challenges, these are the days where things don't go exactly to plan. This is how I navigate them. This is what I do instead. Here are the mindset shifts that have helped me. These are the tools that I've created to help myself through it. It really helps you to show your people that you're someone that they can trust, you're someone who knows exactly what they're going through, and also that you have solutions for them as well. This is why this is the circle that I live in the most when I'm documenting and creating. So I hope that that gives you some insight into, you don't have to show the most intimate behind the scenes of what you're doing. You don't have to stop your creative process to document it or to create content, and instead thinking about how can I actually reflect back on things afterwards. There is something that I want to consider or want to share with you to consider as well, because of this vulnerability in sharing the messy behind the scenes. And this was what came up in the group as well. You know, sometimes I'm just standing in my space looking at a blank canvas for a really long amount of time. And it's such a perfect example because it's such a visual representation of something that creative people think should not be something that happens to them, should not be part of the creative process, where we all know that it is. So first of all, it's important that you find your flow with it and start to notice how much you want to share depending on how you're feeling on a given day, your energy, your season, the particular topic that might feel like something that's a bit too raw right now and real, and you're not ready to share it, but you might be able to or ready to share it later on. Or it's something that just feels like just a bit too close and you need a little bit more time for it. And remembering that this messy, imperfect action is also what your people need to see to validate that they are not doing it wrong, that they're not ready yet, or that they're not good enough, because they can see then someone that they follow, that they look up to, that they have learnt from, that they see as an aspirational person that they are also wanting to like see what they're up to and see how they're doing things, and realizing, oh, that's not just me. I'm not alone here. This is part of the process. The power is in showing what's normally hidden. And it connects us with our people in a real way, in a way that the aspirational, I came up in the, I think I've told this story all 3 times that I've done this training now, but hopefully this time everyone will actually get to see it and hear it. But this is something that I came up in the coaching world of the aspirational influencer coach. That was who there was, and the only people that kind of existed in the online coaching space when I started coaching were the aspirational influencer coaches, and they all looked a certain way and they had a certain kind of lifestyle, and that was everything. That was what it meant to be a coach. And I'm so grateful that that has changed because over the years, because that's not what people want to see. They don't want to see someone who's living a life that feels impossible to them. They want to see someone who is maybe a few steps ahead, who has maybe got a few things that they're also struggling with or they're trying themselves that they can learn from and, be on that journey with them. And I think that that's something really important we need to think about when we're creating our content. So this is, as you will know, in the group, we have the 10-minute content quest in the content pillar. And this is where I want to really touch back on that. And I'm going to build that out a little bit as well. But for right now, it's kind of like a 4-week, like just focus on one tiny thing per week to start playing with and experimenting with. So I want to kind of bring it back around to this because we do talk about documenting a lot in the group. 10-minute content doesn't mean 10 minutes of filming your life. It literally means how can I create something as quickly as possible to just show a little snippet of what is going on in my world so that people know that I'm open for business. It does not have to be beautiful production quality. It does not have to be the most profound thing you've ever done or said on the internet. It is literally just like, what can I do to capture a little part of my world, and you get to be the one that decides what that is. It means 10 minutes in the outer circle of talking about something, sharing something that you've learned. You'll see I've even used examples of different ways that you can do that so far. from conversations that I've had or things that I do in my business. It might be 10 minutes of reflecting, translating, reporting back. It might be that you film for 10 seconds, 30 seconds, and then you just have something there that you put some text over the top and you spend 10 minutes kind of choosing a song and that sort of thing. The 10 minutes is a state of mind of how can I do this so quickly instead of spending hours creating content, that I can just put something up and out and keep moving on with my day. The living comes first, the documenting comes after. So I hope that this gives you something to think about when it comes to how can you do it differently. The most important thing is what it looks like for you in your business as well. And I'm going to share with you some ideas. B-roll is not about proving you're working. It's not about performing that you're an expert or the most professional or the greatest in the whole world. It's about giving context to something that you are living or have already lived, so that it might just show people a little behind the scenes of who you are, of what you do, of how you help people, and how you might help them as well. So let me go through some ideas. What I'm putting together for you in the group is a little library of how you can actually not even necessarily have to be doing this every single day. You absolutely can if you want to. There are easy ways to get started, but that you can just start to build up for yourself a little library. I talk about this in the daily Instagram flow little resource that's in the group. And it's how can I just have a story that goes up. And sometimes it's just just take a selfie, just use a photo that's already in your B-roll, which I 100% do. And I reuse them over and over again. So I'm going to talk about that at the end, and I will share that in the resource as well. But let's go through some examples of the kind of content you can create that is kind of documenting style that can just take the overwhelm and overthinking out of it. So it could be your workspace at the start or end of a session, your tools laid out on your table or your desk, your workspace, what's going on under the camera that nobody can see. For me, I usually have multiple beverages here. I have my notebooks out. I've got pens and things all over the place, and one can see the chaos that happens underneath the camera here. It is a work in progress or a time lapse of what you've been working on. Natural light even shifting across the room as the day kind of progresses. Your coffee sitting there, or even just I'll sometimes just hold up my coffee in front of my bookshelf. It's just kind of dorky things like that just give a little bit of a snapshot of who you are. The things that we have in our office, in our workspace, are things that represent us. They're things that matter to us, that are important to us. And so little snapshots of that, little things that people don't normally get to see, give them another impression into who we are as well. This works because you don't have to use your face. You don't have to narrate. You don't have to be doing something, but it's still visually giving an idea of who you are and what you're about. And this kind of process lets people feel the environment without actually seeing you performing or being in action as well. Category 2 is transition moments. So things like opening up your workspace door, and you do have to do the dorky thing that the vloggers all do. You don't have to turn it into a 30-minute vlog, but you set up your camera and then you open the door and turn the lights on, and you make it just a few seconds that it takes to just do that. And then you're done and you can get on with your process. Turning your lights on and off, packing your things away, closing your notebook or your laptop, tidying up or transitioning between tasks, grabbing your coffee mugs and water glasses and water bottles and things at the end of the day and taking them out of your office. This is a big upgrade from the film while working because it's not interrupting your flow, but you're capturing the edges, not the core of what it is that you do. The transitions tell the story without invading the creative moment. They show a little sneak peek of your life and what your routines and rituals look like as well, without invading on those actual rituals that can be sacred and private for you. And again, some people are happy to do that. You'll have seen examples of this in terms of people filming themselves in a meditation session or a breathwork session or doing one of their spiritual rituals that they do. And you get to choose how much or how little of that you feel comfortable sharing. Category 3 is the stillness and pauses. So this is actually where I think there is so much that you can do to kind of create this idea of anti-productivity. A static shot of your workspace untouched, a chair pulled back from the desk, you sitting and just looking out a window and not actually doing anything. A zoomed in detail that hasn't changed, the blinking cursor on a page, a blank canvas, a blank piece of paper with your pen just sitting there, an unfinished area that you're unsure about, and then you pair it with context later and talk about this was a pause. This wasn't me being stuck or unproductive or out of flow, but I was listening, I was processing, I was just being in the moment, and sharing with people that that is okay as well. This is also incredibly regulating and supportive for ourselves to see that this is part of our process, but also for us to share with our people so that they don't think that they're doing it wrong or that they're failing. It helps us to also normalize it with our people and send a different message from the one that they are used to seeing online on social media. Category 4 is hands-only movement or object-focused movement, like flipping pages, doing tasks without showing your face. Again, filming, setting your camera up and typing on your laptop, or drawing, writing. You can set up something where you're writing in your journal without having to show what words you're writing. Moving things around in your office or in your space, going out for a walk in the middle of the day, testing things and moving stuff around. Hands-only footage, kind of makes you feel like you're still in it without having to be in it, without being the subject. And if the filming for any of this B-roll stuff feels like resistance, there's also stock footage of faceless reels and things that you can buy that still give that movement element, and then you add the context and the documentation on top. I personally prefer to just make your own, because there's little ways that you can do that throughout the week or throughout the month and just keep reusing them, but it's completely up to you what feels the easiest. Category 5 is time capsules. So things like a 10 or 30-second time lapse at the end of the week, a still photo that you just quickly take once per session, or a short clip before you finish up your day. And you just go like, I'm going to set myself a target. So once per week, I'm going to do it. No commentary required, no obligation to post it. You're just bookmarking the process as it's happening, not necessarily recording it. And these are all visual content ideas. You'll know from the Focus Flow Planner that at the end of each day, I just have a little box where I capture what happened that day, what conversations, what themes I'm noticing, what thoughts that I have, or things that I am kind of moving through myself. And this really helps me with that. Like, this is the visual element, and that helps me with like, what content might I want to create? What message might I want to send? What topic or theme I've noticed that's coming up for myself or in the community or with my clients that I want to share in some way. So really capturing it, focusing on that more so than feeling like you have to be performing and creating this amazing content every day. So I'm a little bit ahead of myself here. I forgot that I added this one in. So after the fact, voice or text, you can do a voice note after, each day. Just start a voice note log in your phone. You can jump on Loom and do just on the free plan and just do a quick 5-minute end of day recap where you kind of pay attention to what you noticed, what surprised you, what felt hard, something you maybe changed your mind about, a conversation that you had with a client, a post that you noticed that seeming to, create a bit of conversation, that you have something to talk about. Then you take the unrelated B-roll and you can talk over the top of it. You can add the voice note on top of it. Caption only reflection, that you then have a still image that you kind of captured at a different moment even, or earlier in the day, that you can then add a caption to, or you can add a bit of context to. As I said, most of my content is me translating something after it's already happened. And this is specifically because that is where I feel the best thinking back or reflecting back on something that's happened versus trying to capture it in the moment. And as I said, I use the Focus Flow Planner check-in to keep track of those moments. So when it comes time to creating content, I have this log each day of things that have happened that I might want to create some content around. And then we have the meta B-roll, which is something like a still image. And, this took me 3 hours and most of it was waiting. I walked away from this. I had a meltdown. I started this 6 months ago and I'm only just coming back and finishing it. Like something that happened that shows that there's like a whole process behind your work that other people don't see, and you're giving them a little glimpse into what that is. And maybe even just a clip where nothing is obviously happening, and that is done intentionally. But again, you want to feel into how you're feeling about sharing that. If it's feeling really vulnerable and you're stressed about money and output, or you've got a deadline that is stressing you out, the last thing you want to be thinking about in that moment is creating content around it. For most people, obviously, as I said, there are people who are more than happy to be on camera while they're going through it, and only you can decide what that is. But this is how you normalize the real process without having to stop and show yourself in the middle of it and interrupt your flow or interrupt a vulnerable moment, by actually just taking something that you have already captured and adding that story or that context to it. And then this is your B-roll list. So as I said, you don't have to create or document every single day. I like to document every day, where I just capture the moment, the idea, the concept, the thought, the conversation, and then the visual element itself, I will do that separately. And so in the little resource that I'm putting together, the library, it'll be like, here's a list of things that you could just do in your day-to-day life while you're thinking about it. And you might like to intentionally go, you know what, I'm going to try and take one photo a day. And that actually be a really beautiful documenting process just for yourself. You might set aside an hour a month or an hour a quarter even to intentionally capture some B-roll that you can just use throughout the quarter, throughout the month, over and over and over again. It doesn't really matter. Change your outfit a couple of times, and then just know you've got this kind of growing library of content, because we don't need to do it every single day. And you can reuse your footage because people are not paying that much attention to it. So think about things like a wide space of your workspace, that time lapse, your things like your typing, your tools, your end of day stills, your environment details. So your favorite coffee mug, your behind the scenes backgrounds, a little tour of your office or your space, environmental details, time lapses, drinking coffee or writing or typing, anything like that, that just gives people an idea of where you're at. You might take yourself out to a cafe or the park or something, get some outdoor footage. Just think about different ways that you can share with people a little bit behind the scenes, and then start to kind of put that together in an archive. That means you will just have this growing library of content. And if all of that feels too much, you don't have to do any of it. It can just simply be a case of, what is something that I want to share with my people this week that I have been journeying with myself, that I've been going through, or that I've been noticing, or that I've been having conversations with people about, and send it out in an email, or do a video about it and just talk for 30 seconds or a minute and put that up. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be so hard. The most important thing is like what feels easy for you and manageable, sustainable, and that doesn't interrupt your flow or completely freak out your nervous system because it feels like just another thing that you have to do. This is about documenting for context, not proof. It is for content so that you can share little pieces of yourself and your process and your life with your audience. It helps you to build trust and connection with them. It helps them to see what it is that you're about, what you have learned, what your tools and resources are, and how you can help them as well. It is sharing the real process that helps other people feel legitimate or makes them feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad it's not just me. They have something they relate to you about, and keeping parts private that help you create. So again, not interrupting your flow, not feeling like you have to be exposed or even like freak out your nervous system by feeling like you have to share the most intimate parts of your creative process, and instead getting to choose for yourself and be intentional about it. If documenting makes you rush, perform, or distort your process, you're documenting too close to the creative core, and that is your opportunity to move outwards. To go, you know what, this feels too much right now. I'm going to step back and share more about this later. And having the discernment to know that that is not only okay, it is an excellent choice for you to be able to feel safe within your own work and your own space. Oh, and there's that must have been the last slide. So what I'm putting together is a little bit of a checklist, a library for anyone who wants to start building a bit of a B-roll library and wanting to get into a process of documenting in a way that feels sustainable, where you're kind of building something so that whenever you go, I've got this idea of something I want to post, you have something there ready to go. And hopefully that is helpful for anyone who wants to kind of go a little bit more into it and make the documenting process easy. But at the end of the day, I can only share with you things that I know, things that I do, things that I've learned, and you have to be the one that decides what you want to do. What does it look like for you? How do you want to create content in a way that feels good? Documenting is an easy way to do it because you don't have to sit and think about, like, what would an expert say? What should I say? And instead you get to just share your own stories and experiences and lessons. But if that is not something that you enjoy doing or want to do, or even feel comfortable doing right now, it's so important that you do what's right for you. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know.